The night had started like any other in that dusty roadside bar. Neon signs flickered above the cracked windows. The jukebox crooned a country ballad no one really cared about, and the air smelled of spilled beer and fried food that had clung to the walls for decades. People gathered in small groups, voices overlapping, laughter occasionally breaking through the haze of cigarette smoke. It was a place where lonely truckers, rough bikers, and small-town souls tried to drown their weariness. But no one could have known that on this ordinary evening, one small act of cruelty would freeze the whole room in stunned silence. And it would all begin with a woman who only wanted to be left alone. Stay with me, because what happened next will stay carved into your mind like a scar you'll never forget. She sat at the corner table, the kind of spot people choose when they don't want to be noticed. Her hair was tied back loosely, strands falling around her tired face. Her clothes were simple, worn from time and life, but there was a quiet grace about her, the kind of presence that didn't demand attention, yet carried an unshakable dignity. She wasn't there to drink hard or laugh loud. She wasn't there to meet anyone or impress anyone. She just wanted a moment of peace, a moment to breathe. But peace in a place like that was always fragile. And in the corner of the room, a group of leather-clad bikers noticed her solitude. That's when everything began to change. Point one of them, broad-shouldered and arrogant, with tattoos crawling up his neck and a smirk that spoke of too many unchecked nights, sauntered toward her table. He reeked of cheap liquor and gasoline, the kind of man who thought the world owed him submission. He leaned too close, words slurred, making crude jokes that echoed louder than the jukebox. She turned her face away, whispering a soft, "Please, leave me alone." But to him, her refusal wasn't enough. He laughed, loud and cruel, so the whole bar could hear, feeding on the attention of his buddies who jeered from across the room. You could almost feel the walls lean in, as if the bar itself knew something was about to break. And that's when he did the unthinkable. With one sudden jerk, he reached for her shirt and ripped it, the sound of tearing fabric cutting through the noise like a blade. Gasps broke across the room, followed by silence so heavy it crushed every other sound. Her face turned pale, her eyes wide in horror as she tried to cover herself. But in that instant, something far greater than humiliation was revealed. On her shoulder, inked into her skin, was the emblem of the United States Marine Corps, bold, proud, untouchable. The eagle, globe, and anchor stared back at everyone like a guardian spirit, and the entire bar seemed to freeze in place. And in that silence, every person knew one truth. This was no ordinary woman. This was a Marine. The biker's grin faltered, his arrogance evaporating as quickly as it had appeared. His friends at the far table leaned forward, unsure whether to laugh or to run, their swagger replaced by unease. The Marine Corps tattoo wasn't just ink. It was history, sacrifice, blood, and honor carried in the flesh. It spoke of nights in hostile deserts, of brothers and sisters buried under foreign soil, of vows made to a country and never broken. She rose slowly, her torn shirt slipping from her shoulders, but her eyes, steady, unwavering, locked onto the man who had thought her weak. And for the first time in his life, he realized he had picked the wrong fight. Every person in that bar held their breath. Even the jukebox seemed to fall silent, as if music itself dared not intrude. She didn't shout. She didn't curse. Her voice came low and steady, the kind of voice drilled into someone who had stood in formation, who had learned that control is stronger than chaos. "You made a mistake," she said, her eyes burning into him. "You don't touch a Marine. Not me. Not ever." Those words hung in the air, electric, heavier than any punch. And though her body was smaller than his, though her frame seemed fragile compared to his bulk, in that moment she towered over him, and he knew it. The biker stepped back, but the bar didn't let him retreat into anonymity. A few of the older men, veterans who had stayed quiet in their shadows, began to stir. One man, gray-haired and wearing a worn army cap, rose slowly to his feet. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from memory. "Respect," he muttered, loud enough for the biker to hear. "You give her respect." Others followed, voices low at first, then rising in unity. Respect. It was as if the tattoo had pulled something sacred out of the room, reminding everyone of the lives behind the ink, The battles fought for their very freedom to sit in that bar and laugh or cry or drink in peace. The biker's arrogance collapsed. Under the weight of that word, respect, he looked around, realizing the room was no longer his stage. The same people who cheered him minutes ago now stared at him with disgust. His hands twitched, unsure whether to fight or flee. But she, standing tall in her torn shirt, didn't flinch. She took a step closer, her voice still calm but sharp as steel. "You can walk out that door now," she told him, "or you can learn the hard way what happens when you dishonor a Marine." The choice hung in the air, heavy and final. The biker, breathing hard, finally dropped his gaze. His pride was broken, his power stripped away. Without another word, he backed toward the door, his boots clumsy against the wooden floorboards. His friends, who had once been loud and fearless, followed in silence, their bravado crushed by a truth they could no longer laugh off. When the door slammed shut behind them, the bar exhaled all at once, the tension breaking like a dam. And, in that moment, every eye turned to her, not in pity, not in judgment, but in reverence. She stood quietly, adjusting her torn shirt, pulling it back around her shoulders. She wasn't crying. She wasn't shaking. Instead, she looked almost serene, as if she had carried heavier burdens in her life than one man's cruelty. The old veteran in the army cap stepped forward, his voice softer now, filled with something almost like awe. "Semper Fi, Marine," he whispered, and her lips curved into the smallest of smiles, her voice returning the greeting. "Semper Fi." The bar erupted, not with noise, but with a kind of reverent silence, the kind where everyone felt they had witnessed something sacred. The jukebox started again, playing a softer tune, and people slowly returned to their seats. But the air was different now, charged with respect, with humility, with something deeper than anyone had expected to find in a roadside bar on a forgotten night. And she, the woman who had wanted nothing more than to be left alone, had unknowingly reminded them all what honor truly meant. Hours later, when she finally left, the bar watched her go in silence. No one tried to stop her. No one tried to follow. She walked out into the cool night, her figure illuminated by the flickering neon light above the door. And though her shirt was torn, her spirit was whole, untouchable. She disappeared into the darkness, but her presence lingered, etched into the memory of everyone who had seen that tattoo, that moment, that truth. Some would never speak of it. Others would tell the story over beers for years to come. But all of them would remember the night the bar went silent. Not because of violence, but because of the quiet, unshakable strength of a Marine who needed no one to fight for her. And so the story ends, not with fists or broken bottles, but with respect restored, dignity reclaimed, and a reminder that true power is not in size, nor in swagger, but in the unyielding spirit of those who have given themselves to something greater. It was a lesson the biker would never forget, a lesson the bar carried like a hidden scar, and a story that will echo in the hearts of those who hear it. Never mistake silence for weakness, and never underestimate the strength behind the mark of a Marine.